leaving the People's Democratic Party for the APC or any other party for that matter. And that picture of him that you saw online with APC governors preparing to welcome the president to Edo State is a doctored picture, he says, a fabrication and a deliberate ploy to create confusion and cast doubt on his loyalty to the People's Democratic Party. Consultations with critical stakeholders are ongoing, he says, to resolve lingering issues affecting the party in the North Central Zone. Meanwhile, he is one of the voices from the People's Democratic Party who say they are ready to produce the PDP's substantive national chairman to fill the vacuum created by Senator Iyorchia Ayu's exit. Who do they have in mind? And today, we find out what he thinks of the 2025 49.7 trillion naira budget presented by President Bola Tinubu, a budget his party has referred to as anti-people, unrealistic, opaque, and insincere. Political and developmental intrigues in Plateau State, Nigeria, home of peace and tourism, takes center stage on today's edition of Political Paradigm. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Kayla Megwa. My guest today is the Executive Governor of Plateau State, Governor Caleb Muftwang. Your Excellency, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kayla. Good evening, viewers.
It's so good to have you here.
Nice being here as well.
How is Plateau State this morning?
Plateau State, we thank God. Things are getting better.
I saw the Christmas carol.
Oh, yeah.
For the ending of December into end of November into January.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, you know, about years before and how the Yuletide in many ways heralded fear in the hearts of people. Just last 2 years, I think last year. Just last year, I think it was in Barking Ladi.
No, in Bokos.
In Bokos.
Yeah.
Yes. Just last year, that tragedy that happened there. And I know that there are a lot of efforts from your administration to ensure that that doesn't happen again.
Absolutely.
Talk to us a little bit about some of these reconciliation, because that's what they are called, reconciliation efforts of your administration to ensure peace in the state.
Well, thank you very much, Kayla. Last year, December was a particularly sorrowful period for us, when on Christmas Eve into Christmas Day and on Boxing Day, we had this reign of terror unleashed on our people in Bokos. These insurgencies have been going on for the last 20 years or thereabout. But the December 2023 episode was like the climax of it. Since then, we've moved on. We've deployed a lot of resources, both kinetic and non-kinetic, to try to deal with the situation. In terms of non-kinetic solutions, we've had to engage in a lot of intra- and inter-community discussions, trying to identify flashpoints, trying to smoothen differences, and make sure that we understand ourselves better. Because even if there are insurgents coming from outside the state, they have to pass through some people within the state. And so to a great extent, that tension has been de-escalated. Of course, we've also had to work with the security forces on ground to deal with the criminal elements. And this year, we've done a lot of deployment in terms of technology to try to fish out. Just yesterday, I got a report, one of our outstations, where we have a drone, was able to spot some of these criminals advancing a particular community. And there was a quick response. They took them out. And so this is the kind of thing we've been doing in the course of this year. Sometimes they repel them, sometimes they engage in gunfire. But that's why I told you that things are getting better. We've raved up our security arrangements for this Christmas and New Year period. We've made a lot of strategic realignments and deployments to give our people confidence. And we've motivated the security forces on ground to make sure that they are up and running during this period. We don't want to take any chances at all. And we keep monitoring this on a daily basis to make sure that we are both preventive and also reactive when necessary.
The Inspector General of Police created a squad recently that's supposed to work to ensure safety.
Yeah.
How is the state government working with that particular squad? Maybe break down a little bit of what their roles are going to be and what kind of work you're doing with them.
Okay. The special squads, usually we would deploy them. Usually when they come in, the security, the leaders of the security apparatus, we have a security council made up of the GOC, the Commissioner of Police, the DSS, all the civil defense and all the paramilitary agencies. They come together and do joint deployments. So what we've done, what they have done as they briefed me, is that they've identified some critical, spots that we need to man better. And so they've been able to deploy those special forces to those kind of areas, while we're also intensifying our intelligence gathering mechanism to ensure that we get real-time information on the likelihood of any criminal activity that could upset the environment.
I want to be able to talk about non-kinetic efforts of your administration.
Yes.
The last time I spoke with you, we were talking about local government autonomy, financial autonomy, and the role that plays in security in the local government.
Yeah.
So we'll get to the money bit in shortly. But I want to be able to update us on that particular conversation because you just, gave us some breaking news right now that they spotted some areas. They're moving. And this is the time when they move.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about, those porous borders around Plateau State.
Yeah.
We saw a report. The Nigerian Bureau of Statistics has said we should all ignore that report because their website was hacked and whatnot. But when we saw that report, everyone stayed thinking about just Plateau State. And that's because the North Central came second when it came to kidnappings and ransoms and even crime in the country. So while they're telling us to ignore that report, I want to get your thoughts on the spate of kidnappings and banditry, especially in the North Central, and how local government autonomy, how you are ensuring that local government autonomy helps tackle that problem.
Well, let me say this, that since I came into government, all the officials who have worked with me at the local government level, they have been up and doing. It has nothing to do with autonomy or no autonomy. We are working as one body. We have constant meeting with the local government chairman. We have constant meeting with the traditional rulers. We've always ensured that the local governments also hold security council meetings at their levels, and so that it cascades down, to the nooks and crannies of the state. And so once they read my body language, they know that everybody has to key it, because we'll hold you responsible if things are not going on in your state. And I'm glad to tell you that since we had local government elections this year, the local government chairmen have come in with a renewed zeal, commitment, and passion. Being politicians, they don't want to let their people down. And so that is one of the benefits of having elected officials, because they are accountable to the people. And so, and we've given them every support they need to have. At the moment, they are having a lot of community engagements, which is a non-kinetic strategy I told you about. And so they are also displaying their own leadership capacities. Some local governments are more intense than others. And so, but I can tell you that all the 17 local government chairmen on the plateau, they are up and doing.
Are their finances coming directly to their local government accounts, or are they coming to the state government account?
No. They come through the state government in the meantime. The federal government is yet to take a final decision on that, but they come in and we channel it. I can tell you that since I became governor, even when we had the TIC chairman, we did 48 hours of funds coming into our accounts. They hold the JAC account and move the money as they deem fit.
What's the holdup with getting, because Algon recently stayed complaining about local government accounts not being activated, despite the Supreme Court judgment.
Well, that's not my job. You leave that to the Accountant General of the Federation and the Attorney General of the Federation For me, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything. You see, I think we need to have more conversation around the issues of local government autonomy. And I think I would rather steer the discussion away from autonomy to efficiency, local government efficiency. This is key. As a lawyer, I have issues with the concept of autonomy because our jurisprudence is being put to test. I don't think we have 3 tiers of government. I think we have 2 tiers of government. There is no way the states are going to be divorced from the local governments. I give you an example, Kila. I asked for an evaluation of my local government system in my state. All the burdens created on local government funds by law amount to almost 19.5% of their total income. 5% to the security outfit, 5% to the state university, 5% to traditional council, and several others. Now, but the thing is this, none of those percentages has ever been effected. Because if you effect them, the system will collapse. So the state has to absorb a lot of that burden. I told you we made deployments, investments in technology. We haven't used local government funds. And yet, these are deployments are made to the local governments. And the last time I checked, when the local governments are supposed to be contributing something in the neighborhood of 3.5 million per local government per month to the state university, they are only able to contribute 500,000. But we have to keep the university running. So there's a lot of mix-up that we need to straighten out. I believe in the existence of local governments. Section 7 for me is sacrosanct. I believe that local governments should be made to function as effectively as possible because they are the closer to the grassroots. And by the way, you remember I was a local government chairman and I enjoyed what you could call autonomy in the sense that I worked under a state governor who believed that local governments should function. And so he gave us every support. Now, one of the things I can tell you that if you allow the local government's system on its own without the states, it will collapse, has to do with pension and gratuities. When I checked the gratuity, old local government retired staff is up to 33 billion. Put all the local governments together and give them the next several years, they can't sort that out. So the state has to come in. So there is a symbiotic relationship between the local governments and the states. If you ask me, I wish I could have more local governments in my state. I wish I could have more local governments.
How many more? You have 17.
I have 17. I think we have space for probably 13 more. And if we do get them, we must make them to function. So that's why I told you, I would rather steer the conversation from autonomy to efficiency. And that's what we are focusing on in my state. We are looking at how to make sure the system functions optimally. One of the things we are doing again is exploring ways and means by which the local governments can generate more revenue internally. We need to strengthen those local governments. And they have the potentials. All they need is the encouragement. They need the enabling environment. So some of the investments we are making as a state, we are making sure that the local governments also stand to benefit. For example, we are building markets. And we are making sure that when the proceeds, the proceeds from the market start coming, they should be shared between the state and the local governments to beef them up. So at the moment, our State Inland Revenue Service is collaborating with the local governments because we've deployed technology to be able to provide better efficiency in collecting internally generated revenue. And they've drafted MOUs to be able to make sure that everybody gets what is due to him at the end of the day.
We had a conversation not too long ago about human capital development. And I think it was in August, at the time when the August End Bad Governance protests happened. And we saw the ripple effects of that protest, and your state in particular had to deal with that. But it brought up the question about human capital development in northern Nigeria. And at the time, you said that was something you were going to focus on. And you said then, and I remember very clearly, if one state is doing it and the states around that state are not doing it, you're winking in the dark. You're not going to make any impact. How much more progress has been made when it comes to human capital development in your state, especially these young, unemployed people?
Yeah. Again, this is work in progress. Yeah, it's not a one-day exercise. You've got to identify the critical sectors to be able to deploy them to. One of the things we did was to, for example, we were able to select 20 young people per local government, train them in agribusiness, for example. Some of them are graduates, and all they need is to be able to have the mindset that drives modern agriculture. We are looking at how to be able to deploy them, particularly in vocational education. One of the institutions that has served northern Nigeria, not just Plateau, very well, is we'll call it the BUTEX. That is the Vocational Training Institute, which has trained very great Nigerians. Someone like His Excellency, the Governor of Nasarawa State, presently is a graduate of that school. And we are trying to see how to modernize it. A school that was started in the early 60s, if you go there, it's a sorry sight. But this year we're giving it serious attention into 2025. We have a couple of schools of relevant technology. We're re-engineering our polytechnic to make sure that the capacity for skills acquisition is enhanced. And so we are looking at it in different facets. I can't give you statistics at the moment, but I'm sure by next year we'll be able to churn out a lot of people into mid-level manpower. Our focus is to make sure that our youths are employable. Mark that word. Many of them have gone to school, they are graduates, but they are not employable because they need that cutting edge to be able to make it into the labor market or become entrepreneurs on their own so that they can be able to also create employment in their environments. This is what we're working on.
Let's talk about the 2025 budget for Plateau State.
Yes.
What's its main thrust?
Yeah. We call it the budget of continuity and sustainability. Our 2024 budget, we called it the budget of new beginnings. And so what we have done this year in most critical sectors is to lay foundations. And we hope to build on those foundations in 2025. So we are focusing a lot. You talked about human capital development. One of the things we are investing in training and retraining of our civil servants because we found the capacity below what we expect. So we are investing in that training because if you don't have a competent manpower, you can't drive government vision. But beyond that, we've identified 3 key economic drivers, agriculture, mining, and tourism. And we're making critical investments in these sectors to re-engineer those sectors. One of the things we are coming up, first of all, very critically, is to come up with a clear policy. For example, in agriculture, we are going to basics and we are saying, look, what is our policy for ramping up, for example, the production of rice? What is our policy for ramping up the production of potatoes? We're going down to basics. We're identifying our areas of strength and we're focusing on them. For mining, we are coming seriously, being regulated by the federal government. We have limited roles to play, but we are making sure that the operating environment is conducive. Sadly, I must tell you, Kayla, I lost in the last 3 months, I've probably lost about 26 to 30 people in the illegal mines. And we're saying, look, it can't be business as usual. And a lot of these illegal miners with money, they come in and they take away the little effort that these artisanal miners put in. And they leave them in poverty. But we're coming in strongly in 2025 in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Minerals Development to make sure that the regulatory framework is strengthened, and we still have control over the land. We still have control over business permits, and so we're going to make sure that the law works. But beyond that, we want to see how our people can get better value for the mineral deposits that God has blessed them with in their domains. And so we are working to make sure that we come into that market space very strongly. In tourism, we are doing a lot. I can tell you already, with the little efforts we've put in the last 18 months thereabout, a lot of confidence has returned to Jos particularly, where it will surprise you, Kilia, that sometimes you'd go into Jos at the weekend, you won't find a hotel room to sleep. It's as good as that. And so that is giving confidence to investors to come in. We've been able to sign 2 MOUs to revamp 2 flagship hotels on the plateau. The famous Hill Station Hotel. We are hopeful that by December next year, we should have the first set of rooms delivered for occupation. We're also revamping the Plateau Hotel, which is another flagship hotel that people had enjoyed on the plateau. And the key thing is that this is a PPP arrangement. And so we're doing a lot in terms of boosting tourism. We are going back to basics, coming up with a policy framework that gives a clear roadmap. I just approved a memo from my Ministry of Housing and Urban Development for the replanning of the Jos city, so that we bring it in tandem with modern realities. We won't just, we want to arrest the city from degenerating into a slum. And so we are trying to make sure that we bring in experts to be able to plan the city for the next 10 years at least, and we'll know how development can proceed.
Your beautiful cold city. Your beautiful
fantastic weather.
Cold, fantastic weather in Plateau.
Fantastic weather.
The State Commissioner for Women Affairs, her name is Honorable Caroline Panglang Dafa.
That's right.
She was talking about child trafficking recently. Says it's on the rise. Says it's on the rise in your state. 12 people have already been arrested, according to her. What's the plan? Because I've heard you shout about this, where people have been exported for all kinds of crimes. What's being done about that, and what's really going on?
Well, thank you, Kilia. This is one of the sad developments that I found in the state. Unfortunately, it's not something that started now. It's been going on sadly for some time, but we didn't know about it. For whatever reason, government didn't know about it. I was embarrassed last year, I believe, when Madam Abike Dabri told me she was going to rescue some girls from Ghana and that some were from Plateau State. It was very saddening and embarrassing. And we began to dig into it. We had a resistance when we wanted to remove an illegal market somewhere. And it was when we succeeded in removing the market that, to our chagrin, we discovered that the market was shielding a baby factory where they lure widows, girls from poor homes, and they come in, get them pregnant, they deliver babies, and they sell a baby boy for 200,000, a baby girl for 150,000. We discovered there was a racket here in Abuja, down to Port Harcourt, to Lagos, and all of that. So we had to step in. One of the things, we are dealing with it from both ends, both the demand end and the supply end, to cut off, particularly the supply chain. And we're going after the criminal gangs. That's why she told you that 12 people were arrested. And we are making sure that we strengthen our intelligence gathering, mechanism. We've also we've embarked on massive education of parents. People complain about the economic situation in the country that has pushed them into this kind of very embarrassing, efforts to make a living. But I don't see it as an excuse. I see it as part of the evidence of the godlessness that has come into our society, where human life is of no value. The closest relationship the Bible uses to describe a man's relationship with God is that of a child and a mother. And so when a mother gives up a child, it's a very serious matter that cannot be taken lightly, and there will be no excuse for it whatsoever. And so we're dealing with it headlong. We're arresting people. We're making sure that people get educated. We are making sure that people feel concerned and they are able to now blow the whistle, and we take responsibility.
There's a warning your government issued to people involved in the illegal sale and possession of government property.
Yeah.
How did they get the property in the first place? And what kind of properties are we talking about here? Are we talking about cars? Is it houses? What kind of property?
No.
Is it former government officials? What's happening?
No, not former government. Well, it could be former government officials. We're looking at more at landed property. Because government has played a key role in public life over the years, unfortunately, successive governments, sometimes even as a governor, you don't know what belongs to government except you are told. So the custodians of those assets over time, because there is no accountability system, they now tend to take advantage of that and hide institutional memory. So by the time a governor or two have come and gone, there are still assets in people's hands that nobody knows about. Now, what we are doing is that we've activated the whistleblowing mechanism, and so people are coming forward to tell us, hey, this belongs to government. And by the time you accost the people who are in occupation or possession of that asset, they come clean. They tell you honestly, they did it because nobody knew. Maybe you found a senior government official who died 20 years ago. His relations are still staying in government property. And he has even rented it out, without the knowledge of, there is no record keeping in government. I don't know if it is only Plateau State, but I found it so dismal that it will shock you that some of the properties, I was asking the other day, one of our flagship buildings, the Nigerian Standard Building or the J.D. Gomwalk House, the tallest building on Plateau State. I asked for the designs. It was not existing. The architectural designs were nowhere to be found. I asked for the state secretariat. They couldn't find the architectural drawings.
How old was the building?
It was built by J.D. Gomwalk in the early 70s. So you imagine. Now, that has challenged us. We are trying to create a government depository, for government assets and documents. We want to be able to deal with that during our time in administration, to make sure we take responsibility for government assets. Some of those assets have great value. We can unlock those values for the benefit of our people. If we have a good asset register, in itself, it gives us credit access, So we are trying to make sure that what belongs to government, which belongs to the people, actually, that we make sure that we take custody of it for the benefit of the people.
Your Commissioner for Health, Shukuk.
Yes.
Bakosias. I hope I got that correctly.
Yes, Bako.
So he has been complaining. He talked about repositioning the health sector in Plateau State, and he said that's something you're very interested in. And he said something about starting to manufacture your own drugs.
Yeah.
In what ways and what drugs are we talking about? What disease burden do you think you'll be able to tackle with this new project of yours?
Yeah. Thank you again, Kayla. We were fortunate to be perhaps the first state in Nigeria to, in collaboration with UNICEF, to have a modern drugstore facility. I commissioned it about 3 months ago, and UNICEF helped us tremendously in that regard. So what we are trying to do is to solve the drug crisis in our health sector. We're dealing with two issues, basically. The issue of substandard drugs, as well the issue of expensive drugs. And so we are dealing with the issue of substandard by making sure we have the right facilities to identify the quality of the drugs, particularly circulating within the public health sector. But beyond that, we want to see how to crash the prices of some of these drugs. And like you said, of course, we can't go into sophisticated drugs. There are lots of issues, legal issues, right issues. But there are some of the basic ones that can be compounded. Basic ones, for headache, for fever, for malaria, and some of those basic things, disinfectants and what have you. These are things we can easily do. And we've already started doing them. But beyond what we are doing as government, we are trying to also harness all the potentials within the private sector in our state and making sure that we bring them together so that we can be able to make an impact in that sector. People need to have access to good health care, and part of that is that they must have access to quality drugs at very, very economic prices.
I mean, there's a lot that is being planned for. Do you think you're going to be able to achieve what you've set out to achieve for 2025, looking at your budget?
Yeah.
And for 2024, were you able to, what would you say was a key project for 2024 that you can look back and say, yes, we did that, and then now we can do this in 2025?
Yeah. I'm satisfied that we've been able to do, we've been able to do a lot. I would say I'm satisfied that we've done what we wanted to do. Again, because of budgetary constraints, mainly, and also sometimes because of manpower challenges. But this year, we've been able to intervene critically in the education sector. We found our education sector at a very low ebb. But I'm proud to tell you that our state university is up and running. Our polytechnic has been able to get all the accreditations due to it. I just approved the recruitment of over 800 staff into the polytechnic.
That's a lot of people. How much revenue are we talking about that was generated this year?
That is the problem. We have to find ways and means of making sure that that institution does not collapse. And so it's the investment in the education is a legacy of the future. You can't afford to toy with it. Just 2 months ago, we got approval from NUC for our College of Education to start 17-degree programs. Just last week, we got approval from NUC to start medicine and pharmacy in our state university. So we are progressing. At the primary school level, we've been able to access our UBEC counterpart funds for 2022 and 2023. We're in the process of trying to access that of 2024. And so that will give us probably something in the neighborhood of about 7 billion naira that will invest in basic education. So we've not been able to do the much we wanted to do this year, but going into 2025, we've given ourselves some definite targets. You have a problem of decaying infrastructure. You have a problem of lack of training for teachers. So capacity development that you talked about, it's part of what we're investing in. So in the social services sector, in the health sector, just like we mentioned, we've been able to make some critical investments at the primary healthcare level, and of course at our apex tertiary institution, the Plateau State Specialist Hospital. We were only doing 2 specialist fields. Now we've increased to 6. We've brought in the dental clinic under the hospital as well to see the kind of investments we need to make there. But beyond that, you can't see those investments tangibly. But the fact that the system is working tells you that things are going on. In the transport sector, one of the most applauded successes we've recorded, particularly in urban transportation, where we're able to provide buses for urban transportation at very subsidized prices for the ordinary people. And I'm glad to tell you that even some of the elites are beginning to join those buses now because it has eased off. And because of the appreciation of the people, we're even acquiring more. It's costing us much, but we have a duty to make sure we make life easier for our people. We're able, in collaboration with the Railway Corporation, to revive the railway track from Bukuru to Jos, which is the main hub where people travel within the city. We are working at, we've also improved travel from Plateau State to other parts of the country by bus. Of course, we have had to keep the airport running. We make sure that they have constant flights into Jos in collaboration with Value Jade and ARIC. They're doing a lot in that regard. And so we are doing a lot in critical sectors. We've done a lot in terms of urban upliftment, where we have been able to repair some of the urban roads. And I wish we could do more, and we certainly plan to do more. And so in many key aspects of our lives, we've been able to show the people what we intend to do. That's the way I put it. I don't want to talk about what I have achieved. I want to talk about what I have demonstrated to our people, that this is the direction we're going, and we hope we'll do better.
I'm smiling because, listening to you reminds me of one of the reasons why they say it's important to have grassroots people become governors. Because if you've been in governance at the local levels, you kind of know where the shoe pinches.
Absolutely.
And it's a little easier for you to handle, complicated situations, especially when they happen.
And just to tell you, Kilia, I don't deceive myself. By virtue of the office I occupy, I'm among the elite. But I'm a village man. I just find myself among the elites. So I don't forget where I'm coming from.
Absolutely. I want to be able to talk a little bit, let's talk a little bit of politics.
Yes.
Because, you are the chief politician of your state. And I heard you recently, after this meeting, looking at the exit of Yocha Ayu, you said, no, we want the substantive president, the chairman of this party, to come from the North Central.
Yes.
You want that replacement, and you're very vocal about it. Talk to us a little bit about those dynamics, and if possible, who you have in mind.
Well, thank you, Kilia. People have tried to create the impression that there's a crisis in the PDP. I say there's no crisis. Is a normal evolution in party politics. Yes, Dr. Ayu had to vacate the seat. Rightly or wrongly, he vacated. And he happens to come from the north central part of the country. And so, rightly so, people started agitating that someone from the north central should be able to fill in his shoes and complete his tenure. There's a precedent for that. You recall that when Alhaji Babanga Tukuru was left as chairman, former Governor Ahmed Muazu stepped in from the same Northeast, and later Chief Secundus, who was the then Deputy National Chairman, took over when Muazu vacated. One late barrister, Gulak, had to go to court to challenge Secundus from occupying that position. And that's when we brought in Sheriff. That's a story for another day. The rest of that is history. And so eventually we had to dissolve the entire ESCO, and then former Governor Bakarfi took over as caretaker committee chairman, who now brought in a new ESCO led by Secundus this time around as substantive national chairman. And when Secundus had to leave office, again, by this time, there was a change in our constitution, which brought in 2 deputy national chairmen. Now, people would argue that that had altered the situation when Gulak went to court. And so, naturally, the chairman from the north, the deputy national chairman from the north, which is the current acting national chairman, Ambassador Damagud, stepped in naturally. Now, should he have stepped in for a limited period of time, or is he allowed to continue and run out the term of Ayu? Being one definition of region is that it is north and south. But another definition, if you do a community reading of the Constitution, is to say that it's geopolitical zone. Now, but the key thing is that the succession of party leadership has never been by voting. has never been under a rancorous situation. That's my position. I share the sentiments of people from the North Central, and I've been advocating amongst my colleagues that let's listen to what the people of North Central are saying. But again, I am not inclined to those who are trying to make it a change by violence, a change by whether you like it or not, by fire, by force. It has to be by consensus.
Is there anyone you have in mind?
It's not for me to decide. It's not for me to decide. When the decision makers decide, Nigerians will know.
How did you feel when you saw those criticisms? Well, it was a very interesting picture we saw where it looked like you and the APC governors were in Edo getting ready to welcome the president, and then this rancor, it just went all over the place. Oh, he's defecting. He's moving to the APC.
Yes.
But you've come out strongly to say, look, this was a doctored picture. It's got nothing to do with me. I have no intention of leaving the PDP for the APC or any other party. So your loyalties, strictly with the PDP.
Let me tell you, Kilia, there are two states in Nigeria where party loyalty is almost a religion. One is Plateau State. The other is Anambra State. You can almost be sure that ABGA will always survive in Anambra. And you can be sure that PDP is the party of the Plateau people. I'm a grassroots politician, and I will always go with my people. They gave me this trust on this platform. And it will interest you to know that we had our ward and LGA congresses just a few months back. And what we saw amazed us, that election of party officials was taken over by communities. It wasn't left to politicians, because Plateau people have said, this is our party. The APC aberration has come and gone. APC would never have won Plateau if not for PDP people that revolted against certain decisions, at that time. And so any politician that knows his onions must first know his environment. And Plateau is PDP. PDP is Plateau State. And so some mischief makers created that confusion. But also some people who are trying to weep more than they bereaved were trying to drag me to salvage their own image. There are people, I can tell you, within the APC who feel that they need a leader that can reinvent the APC on the plateau, because they know that actually it's not a party that, on the plateau, it is sellable. And so they needed, with all sense of modesty, they think that we can bring some credibility, to that party. That's why they're trying to drag me into it. But I remain a steadfast member of the People's Democratic
Party. So trying to drag you, have they reached out to you?
No. It's just
so
in the
just social media.
Just social media stuff.
So let's go back to the PDP. Let's talk about the 2025 budget of the country. I want to use the words of your party. The budget's lack of clarity, particularly on capital and recurrent expenditure details, and expressed and the dismay over the president's claim of an 85% performance rate for the 2024 budget, without a breakdown between capital and recurrent expenditures. The budget address was more of campaign rhetoric, filled with unsubstantiated economic statistics, false promises, and conjured performance claims. It lacked clear strategies to address insecurity, revive the economy, create jobs, and reduce the cost of living. That's what that statement from your party, they're describing it as ludicrous. His assertion that the 2025 budget will reduce inflation from 34.6% to 15% and improve the naira. They're saying this budget is anti-people, it is opaque, it is unrealistic. Do you stand with your party on that?
Let me disappoint you a little bit, Killer, because to be honest with you, I haven't read it. And so I can't make a personal opinion on what I have not yet digested. But let me say this generally. A budget is a statement of expectation. It's a statement. There is no governor or president who will go into making a budget and doesn't try to raise hope, because every budget is ambitious. Let me put it that way. And so you try to see how to revamp the nation through the budgetary expenditure, deploying resources in critical sectors of the economy. At this moment, I think even the National Assembly has not fully digested. They've had a debate, I understand, on the preliminary objectives of the budget, but I'm sure when they get into the nitty-gritty, probably there could be some readjustments. Like they say, the devil is in the details. So for me now, I would not want to say anything until I digest the budget fully.
Well, just so we can update you on a little bit of what your party is saying.
Yes.
They're saying the National Assembly should reject the budget in its current form. They should invoke their constitutional powers to restructure the proposal to prioritize economic growth and citizens' welfare. Just before we drop our topic on that budget, is this a people-centric budget in your view? At least without knowing what without quoting the PDP, just your thoughts listening to the president and that budget presentation. Was it a people-centric budget?
That's what I told you. There is no budget that would not focus on the people necessarily. But whether it is realistic is a different question. And so, like I told you earlier, the devil is in the details.
Okay.
We need to get to digest specific aspects of the budget. And I'm glad they talked about restructuring, which the National Assembly can do. If the National Assembly feels that there are certain proposals in the budget that are not likely going to achieve the intended, the intentions of Mr. President, they are allowed to tinker with it, because at the end of the day, when they are done with the budget, it becomes law. And so, but they must again remember that the executive has control for both macro and microeconomic policies, both the fiscal and monetary policies. So we must give them the benefit of doubt in the hope that together with the states, because virtually most of the states have also submitted their budgets now, the few I have listened to or read are quite equally ambitious. We would have areas that I'm sure our state assemblies will equally fine-tune. There will always be disagreements on perspectives and strategies, but at the end of it all, my own advice is that both the different arms of government must collaborate to ensure that better quality of life is delivered to our people.
And finally, we're about to wrap up. I can't believe it. Time has gone so quickly.
That's right.
The tax reforms. Governors
Yes.
from your part of the country said they do not like the tax reforms because of the derivation question. And, laid out their reasons for not supporting this. So far, we've heard, it's not withdrawn, but negotiations, which many people from your party and other governors also from the north have said, look, these negotiations should have happened before you even brought it up. And I know you were at that NEC meeting as well. So you have two voices from the northern governors, from the National Economic Council. Your region said, look, we don't want this. The derivation issue is a problem for us. Talk to us a little bit about your thoughts as governor of Plateau State on the tax reforms and what you think should be done going forward about them.
Unfortunately, Kilia, I was not at the NEC meeting and I was not at the Northern Governors meeting.
You weren't at both meetings.
But I have been able to digest a few of the concerns that people have expressed. And I think there's need for dialogue. Let me give Mr. President the benefit of doubt that is intended for good. But there are definite aspects that we need to look at. One aspect that people have raised, which I think we need to look at, we must not take away powers from RAMFAC, that is Revenue Mobilization Fiscal Allocation Commission, to the FIRS. The FIRS is a collecting agent for the federal government. The states have their own inland revenue services. But RAMFAC is a federation institution. If we are going to tamper with RAMFAC, we must go through constitutional amendment. The second point is the derivation principle you mentioned. I've seen various figures. I'm not an tax expert. In fact, the last figures I saw seem to favor my state. So some states gain, some states lose. Now, that's where we need to have a dialogue so that there's a win-win situation for everybody. people have also raised concerns about the impact of this bill on institutions like TETFON, like I can't remember the others now, but one institution like TETFON, even though people have argued that it has a terminal period, but it has made great impact on our education sector. We need to look at it very well. Should we kill that institution, or should it continue to exist? I see the point in trying to do away with multiple taxation, so that we can have a uniform
consolidated tax system. Yes.
But again, there are concerns that some of the powers of the new revenue service may be encroaching on the powers of state inland revenue services. And so we have to look at it in the context of the federation. I think the missing link in the tax reform bill is dialogue. If we are able to dialogue and there's sincerity of purpose, I don't think there's nothing that cannot be sorted out. So it's for the proponents of the bill not to see it as opposition, and for those who are opposing the bill not to use it as advantage for political payback. I think we need to have a meeting point where we look at it very honestly, critically, and come to a win-win situation, like I said, for everybody. Certainly, we need to do away with multiple taxation. It's not good for business, but anything that will increase revenue to government at various levels and make sure that those revenues are properly deployed in order to make life better for our people, I think for me, I'm for it.
Let's close up with 2027.
Yes.
And your party in the 2027 elections. Meetings have started. People are meeting everywhere. In fact, the alternative group were in Plateau sometime last week. You know, we're seeing a lot of conversations going on right now, getting ready for the 2027 general elections. How do you think the PDP is going to do in those elections?
Your guess is as good as mine. When we get to the
are they positioning themselves properly for those elections?
I think there's a lot of time. I think there's still time. What you are seeing are just beginnings of the conversation. So it's difficult to hazard any guess at the moment. All I am concerned with, for me as a person, is the stability of the PDP, the solidity of the PDP. What will then come thereafter? Only God knows.
I mean, the stability of the PDP, many people say, is threatened if Atiku runs again. Some people do not think he should.
I don't know. He has the right, and he is old enough to decide for himself. When he makes his decision, others will decide whether to support him or not. But at the moment, the Constitution gives him the right. And so for me, it's too early in the day to talk about who will be president or whether there will be vacancy in 2027, like some people have said. And for me, honestly, 2025 is about governance. I don't want to waste too much time on politicking. I want to face the issue of governance squarely. More so for somebody like me, having to go through the legal process that took away quite some months away from me. I think it will be fair to our people to make sure we concentrate on governance before we talk politics.
I want to thank you so much, Your Excellency, Governor Caleb Muftwang, for being with us on Political Paradigm. Good luck with all the work you have ahead of you, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
To you and the people of Plateau State.
Thank you. Thank you, Kila, and the entire Channels management. And let me say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to our viewers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that is Political Paradigm this week. Please join the conversation on our website, channelstv.com. Leave your comments there, respectfully, of course. And join us as we continue to ask the accountability question until it is answered. I'm Kayla Megwa. See you next time.